All right, YouTube, Occult Video 46 on asceticism, the Aghori, mainly in specific, or what I'm interested in, the sort of the sadhu of the Hindu tradition. Sorceress individuals, they do all sorts of rituals you would probably find weird. I don't. I think they're quite nice, actually, myself. The concept of asceticism within a spiritual context. This is something that I've actually written about before as part of the. I can't remember which work that I wrote specifically on this in. I think I actually put this specific manuscript. It was a shorter piece that I wrote that I put in several different works. I believe A Grimoire for the Modern Age was one of them. The concept of asceticism sort of wars with hedonism. That is, that you can say within a spiritual context, there are different general mannerisms that are used by adherents of different religions, members of different spiritual groups and movements, in order to attain enlightenment, theosis, becoming more godlike in some tangible manner, something like that, to become more powerful in an occult manner, and so forth. This ties in with chaos magic in a way. There's the concept of vacuity and so forth at play within chaos magic. I will make a video about that as well in the near future. The Aghori are strict asceticists. The Aghori are sort of the fringe of the fringe. That is, the sadhu are sort of the fringe, hermit-like Hindus, wise men, holy men. They tend to live in caves or out on the fringes of society, living largely a hunter-gatherer existence in some cases, dispensing herbal medicines to people and so forth, visiting different villages, wandering around, chanting a lot of mantras, meditating a lot, and not really taking part in active society. The Aghori take it a step further. They will literally spend their time in graveyards, on charnel grounds, dig up bones and use them for jewelry. They commune with ghosts and demonic entities and so forth. The idea is that it's sort of like the crucifixion of the flesh spoken of within certain groups within Christianity. You would think of the flagellants. The flagellants would beat themselves until they were literally bleeding from every part of their body in order to try to take the sins of the people around them, in order to expunge their own sins, in order to crucify the flesh to save the soul. It was similar to the parable of Jesus, when he talks about it's better to lose your eye and go into heaven blind than to keep it and go into hell. It's sort of a takeoff of that tradition. The concept is you are purging yourself or preventing yourself from needing to be purged by being holy, by being godlike or ascendant or enlightened or good in some sense or another. The Aghori will literally take funeral ashes from burned bodies and smear it all over themselves. They'll mutilate themselves. They're basically cutters. I mean, an emo would probably like to become an Aghori in some cases, someone who self-harms. They have really no respect for their own body. They abuse it constantly. They take a bath in a cold waterfall and then wander around the jungles, potentially being stalked by predatory animals. You think of like countryside India, you're thinking a high prevalence of rabies and other diseases, quite a few venomous species, fucking cobras and stuff. They just wander around and don't really give a shit. They live basically in nature. They'll literally live in a cave, and they'll do this for a number of years. And although I am not ascetic in my own beliefs and practices, I follow Epicureanism mostly. I can at least respect what they're doing. And it's not like the Aghori try to rabidly convert other people, as you might expect from some ascetic Christian movement from the Middle Ages or something. A group of monks and so forth. Interestingly enough, if you look back, here's a statement to be made about the more strict forms of asceticism. Where they become too strict, legalese creeps in, and groups will attempt to exempt themselves from their rules. For instance, you may think of monks, the Middle Ages and the Renaissance. They were only allowed to drink a small amount within their abbeys. They tended to brew a lot of alcohol to support their monastic lifestyle. But they were only allowed to have a small amount. Well, that's no good. When you spend 10 hours a day praying and the other 2 or 3 hours that you're awake, you're primarily spending in total reverent silence, being a scribe because you're the only literate people of Europe at the time, and you're expected to like copy biblical works over and over for your entire life. No, you want to have a little bit more alcohol than that so you can take a little more humor. So what did they do? They would build rooms onto these abbeys, these monastic home areas that they had, and declare them not to be part of the abbey. It just happened to be connected by a doorway or something. And they'd go in there and they'd drink more because they could. They would store the beer in there, and they'd go and they'd get drunk, and then they'd go and do their scribe work, or they'd go and pray, or they'd go putter around their garden like, the dude with the beans there. I can't remember his name at the moment. Mendelian genetics. Sorry, Mrs. Rayford, have to go like that. AP Bio, it's an old story. But anyway, within asceticism, you're sort of crucifying yourself, denying yourself luxury, denying yourself comfort in many cases, literally making yourself uncomfortable. Whereas within hedonism, of course, there's no such restriction. Your highest goal is to enjoy things and drink the wine and eat the fine bread and so forth. And I noticed that asceticism and hedonism were in a way the same thing. Now, this will be controversial for some that are within spiritual traditions, but hear me out. The hedonist and ascetic both have the same goal, if it's within a spiritual context. Otherwise, hedonism and materialism aren't exactly the same thing within a secular context. They both are trying to achieve some sort of occult power or spiritual goal, enlightenment, ascendant, whatever it happens to be, a better next life, a better reincarnation, whatever it happens to be. They're both trying to achieve the same end result. There's the first similarity. Secondly, the ascetic, in many cases, claims that the absorbing of material goods in the hedonistic path is a sort of habit. It's something that needs to be broken in order to gain these goals. Yet the ascetic has a habit of crucifying their flesh, a habit of doing these things. Now, I've heard within Tantric Buddhism in some traditions, there are certain exceptions made. For instance, a person who spends most of the year fasting a great deal, eating only a vegan diet, surviving on rough bread and the honey of their own tears sort of thing, would then have 1 or 2 days where they're supposed to feast, they're supposed to get kind of drunk and let go. The idea is to prove that you still have the will to do so. That is, it's a statement that you're not simply controlled by a deity or a spiritual force or a blind conviction, that you have to do this. It's all for yourself. You have to get to some ascendant level. You still have the capability to renege on those fasting vows and so forth that you've made. You're showing you have the power to do that and then stopping again. You're simply showing that you still have the sentience necessary to choose a different lifestyle, and then you return immediately to the fasting and the praying and so forth. Within hedonism, you have the same thing. Look at the Catholic ritualism. Look at the fast that they perform, and then what do? They have a great big feast at the end. And all other days of the year, they can eat what they want, they can do whatever they want, they can drink more than perhaps they should in many cases, but then they're expected for at least a short period to fast a little. So you have sort of a yin-yang here. You have the 99% ascetic lifestyle with a little bit of hedonism here and there just to show you're still sentient. And then you have the hedonistic lifestyle with a little bit of fasting here and there to show you're penitent. The Epicurean path, which is what I walk, I see pleasure as the highest good. I see enjoyment as the highest good. I see self-gratification as just fine. But I see certain types of self-gratification and indulgence as negative. Not negative in any divine sense, not negative in any truly spiritual sense, but negative in the sense of destroying one's ambition, destroying one's capability. It's not physically healthy. It can be unhealthy mentally. For instance, look at it like this. Nothing in life is sure and stable. We could have an atomic war tomorrow. Who is better off? The person whose greatest enjoyment in life is to fucking putter around out in a garden, which you can certainly still do after an atomic war. It might glow in the dark, but it's, potentially still there unless you've taken a direct hit. Or the person whose greatest love in life is, racing around in their Porsche or something. Well, clearly the first person, they can still achieve all the happiness they had before. They haven't really, things might be a little tougher in general, but their highest goal, their highest love in life, is still something they can do to an unlimited degree. In fact, it's probably easier for them now. There's plenty of free land everywhere. They can get all the cow shit and seeds that they want. Why do you think I want an atomic war? This whole property would be nothing but one giant fucking garden. Whereas the person who likes to roll around in their Porsche or sit in their mansion with a bunch of guards around their gold pile and all that stuff, they can't necessarily continue that lifestyle. Now they're just another serf, a fucking peasant. They probably don't even know how to obtain food on their own. They're fucked. They're going to be miserable before they die. So the Epicurean system that I ascribe to is about the enjoyment of simple pleasures. A walk on a nice sunny day, a cool breeze on your shoulder, watching plants grow, pet the cat, something like that. You can keep doing these even in mostly the toughest of times. Whereas the expression of enjoyment for wanton desire, that is full stupid materialism, just sort of the commercialized culture, nonsense that everyone seems to have nowadays. That's all about, I want the expensive, I don't just want sour beer. That's, I'm still going to get drunk, but I don't want that shit. I want the fine vodka over here, the $50 a bottle stuff that won't be manufactured anymore after that atomic war or the next Carrington event or whatever, or when Yellowstone goes off. It'll stop existing. You'll be in misery. Somebody who's more Epicurean, who enjoys nature, who enjoys the breeze and the sun and the plants and so forth, they're just fine. Everything that they always enjoyed before, they can continue to enjoy now. Life may be less comfortable in general, but it's just fine. Spiritually speaking, it's more of a pure path. That is, the Epicurean path, the middle path you could term it, is not about simply crucifying your flesh because it's seen as having no purpose to do so. There's no sense that your flesh or the average mode of life is evil in any intrinsic sense. Likewise, the concept of hedonism, because you enjoy simple pleasures, you enjoyed that, bowl of tobacco in your wizard pipe, you enjoyed that cup of beer, you enjoyed eating that spinach that you grew yourself. Because you are filled with simple pleasures, simple and positive pleasures, you have no need for the hedonistic lusts of the world. You have no need for the sports car. You don't need the mansion. You don't have any desire for them. You don't have any need or desire for that bar of gold or, the big old oaken throne or any of these great things that many people ascribe to. And so you've walked a different path from the ascetic who crucifies themselves like the Aghori, like a monk, like something like that, or a flagellant, or some mystic wandering around out in the cave somewhere in the middle of nowhere in Scandinavia, nor have you succumbed to the tendency of man to go overboard and to simply absorb more and more and fuck themselves and everyone else in the process that the hedonist follows. So you're still technically a hedonist, it's just your aim. Your goals are at a different level and for a different purpose. It's not simply gratification for gratification's sake. Many of these things that would be enjoyed by the Epicurean are things that are very positive. Growing things, I would see that as a positive thing. Plant some trees or whatever. It improves the world. It makes it beautiful. It spreads nature. It's wonderful. Being kind to the soft, fluffy animal. Well, what could possibly be wrong about that? Smoking your bowl of tobacco. Yeah, maybe nicotine's not so great for you, but, what the fuck ever. It's probably better than living in Beijing and smoking 2 or 3 packs a day by breathing their fucking air. So it's a different path. As far as asceticism is concerned, I reject it on the same token that I reject hedonism. I don't have any desire for any of those luxuries that people say that they enjoy and pretend to enjoy. Really, it's just a prison. It's a trap. They're going to die anyway. All those things will rust away. They've left nothing lasting. They had no higher ambition. I see that as a negative thing. Likewise, if somebody spends their whole fucking life doing nothing but abstaining from any pleasure at all because they see pleasure as an evil thing, what's the point? You haven't enjoyed your life at all. I would like to think that if there's a spiritual path, it comes with some level of degree of enjoyment, that it's not simply about crucifying this life in order to be in some divine existence that in many cases, let's face it, we don't even know exists. So it's kind of a pointless practice. Asceticism, today, Christianity tends to be more of a hedonistic religion. Islam is a hedonistic religion. Look at the way the House of Saud lives, or something like that, or some of these clerics. They live in these very ornate places. They eat the finest food. They often ignore their own religious laws. They drink. They have orgies. They have lots of premarital sex and concubines and all these things that are sort of banned in most cases under Islamic ideology. You would look even at the Hindu. You look at some of these self-professed godmen within mainstream Hindus. I'm not talking about the Aghori, because they're about as non-mainstream as you can possibly fucking imagine. They don't even really visit urban areas if they can help it. But you look at mainstream Hinduism, you look like Nithyananda or something like that. And these godmen, self-professed, they sit there on their throne, eating their fine fruits and so forth, and telling others to donate to their ashram or something like that. Donate, because then I can continue living my lavish lifestyle, and you can, you'll be blessed by Ganesha or something like that. It's the same within Buddhism. You have some of these masters, they're out of step with their own ideology. Not so much, but it's definitely there. And it happens within any religion. You look at paganism. You look at some pagan lord as opposed to sort of the peasants or the warriors or something that were supporting them. There's a difference between the two. I don't see that there should be such a difference. And it fits right in with libertarianism also, let me tell you. I don't profess to say we should ban hedonistic practices. I simply say a person's a fool if they engage in them, because then times get rough. They lose everything. A person who enjoys simple pleasures, their garden or whatever, they don't lose anything, generally speaking. They're just fine. The things they enjoy, hell, they can keep doing them. Like if there was an atomic war tomorrow, the only thing really that I enjoy that I would lose out on is the internet. And even that, I mean, it might still exist in some form. But I could always hook up some solar panels and at least run a laptop, watch movies, and listen to music. Well, that's just fine too. A life without music's not worth living either, by the way. Music is one of those highest goods. So yeah, there's a little bit about sort of the ascetic value on one side, the hedonists, and then sort of this middle route that I think a lot of people within spirituality really kind of overlook it. They don't even really see it as an ideology that can be used for spiritual development, but it can. It's the perfect ideology for spiritual development as well in an academic sense, or I should say in an intellectual sense. A person professing these things, like I enjoy editing and writing occult works and so forth. That's a simple good. It's not something that requires an investment of massive amounts of capital to enjoy. In fact, it can actually make money over time. But if you buy a sports car, that's not what happens. If you buy a mansion, you pay taxes. You buy the Porsche, you pay for the gas. You pay for the insurance. You buy that gold, you have to defend that gold. Well, that's a little bit different from the sort of things that I would enjoy, that others enjoy. It's sort of a pastoralist view of the world, as though nature is supreme, mankind is secondary. And when man is in step with nature in some way or shape or form, that's really when he's at his happiest, because we never left nature. We're still essentially just a bunch of semi-hairless apes. Some of us have more hair than the others. And that's basically what we are. So naturally, it would be obvious that we would enjoy the sunshine and the trees and the sound of birds and so forth. That's the kind of life I choose to live. I feel it's a healthy lifestyle. I don't frown upon others who are ascetic. More power to you. If you can stand that sort of lifestyle, then great respect to you. But at the same time, I see it as spiritually pointless. That's about all. Peace out.